like leave it outside. There's no reason.
What? Like, we don't have time for this.
We need
We
to get
need
out
to
of here, not
go.
investigate this weird
The
creature.
ocean
Like,
keeps killing us. So
yeah.
could we not? Hi, I'm Gabe,
And I'm Cat.
and we're
And we're
the ghouls
the
next
ghouls next
door.
door.
Talk about spooky stuff.
As we do, you know. We're
Yes.
almost 200 times, you know?
200 times we've told you almost. We are the media literacy show from a horror lens where we explore the real life, historical, psychological, scientific reasons behind
All that
our
stuff.
cinematic fears. And we have been doing it for 198 times.
That's insane. Do you know
Yeah.
how many hours? That's so many hours.
That's
That's
198
198
hours.
hours.
It's
That's so.
198 hours.
Who wants to hear us say words that much? It's insane.
Somebody does.
Probably.
Somebody out there is digging us. So, for episode 198 and then next week 199, we're going to be exploring Gabe and Kat's fears.
Things we hate. Love
Yeah.
it.
And why we should be afraid of them, or what like gets
Yeah.
under our skin when it comes to film or content media, things like that. Yeah, so today we're going to kick off our fears with Cat's fear. And we've talked about this like ad nauseum about what
Yeah.
Cat is afraid of.
We've talked about ocean fear a bunch of times. Ironically, though, I wasn't as scared of this film as I thought I was going to be. I was like really thinking I was going to be devastatedly scared. And I was like, yeah, that was scary. But I actually scared myself more when doing the research for this because I was like, why is the ocean a horrible time? And I was like, that's sick. That's where I was like, Planet, whatever it is a horror movie. And it's just a documentary that tells
Yeah,
you about
Planet Earth.
yeah.
Mhm.
That was scarier for me than this movie, but the movie was also very like actiony, so I think
Mhm.
that's why.
I
Yeah,
think you were more afraid of this film when I was telling you about it when I
it's
watched it
true
alone.
too.
Because at first I was like, I'm gonna watch a film called Underwater, and you were like, no, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna do
no,
that. And
yeah,
so I was like, I am gonna do that. And so I watched it alone and I loved it, which I think is really funny because most people didn't love it.
yeah,
And I like the first time I watched it, I was like, wow, what a great film. I was really like, this is amazing. I love so much of it. I had such a
yeah,
good time. And I remember telling you all the crazy things that happened. And the second time I
yeah.
watched it,
You
equally
live
as
tweeted it.
amazing to me. I did live tweet it to you. I
Yeah, it
was
was
like, this
great.
person just imploded.
Yeah, and
And
I
you
was
were
like
like,
waiting
oh
for that
no.
too. Like as we were watching, I was like, when does the explosion person happen?
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I don't know why it got so many bad reviews. I thought it was very funny. Um, I guess, like, if people were like, "I want a really serious film," but it
Yeah.
was in some ways too. Like, the message was serious and the message was legit, but
Yeah. I think
yeah,
it was very loose with a lot of things that were happening, and it kind of
fair,
didn't decide if it was an aquatic horror or like a monster, like a creature feature, but
fair.
arguably Alien also doesn't know which one it is a lot of the
Yeah,
time. Like it's half
that's fair.
space horror,
Yeah,
claustrophobia, and then it's also a creature feature. So I think it's okay to be both. And this is a very
yeah,
alien-esque film. And I will say, like, when you're looking and paying attention to the peripheral things,
uh-huh.
like, that's what I really dug. I was like, "This is really fun." But also, um, the film Underwater, what I liked about it is it really reminded me of certain video games that I enjoyed, like
True.
BioShock or, Soma,
Yeah.
which I
No, it
streamed once.
definitely definitely. It had very
Yeah.
big Soma vibes. It's like slightly less robots. That was, like, the only difference for me.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you had,
Replace it
like,
with
more people
creatures.
to talk to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're not
Um,
absolutely alone.
yeah. But, yeah, it was, like, very fun. I think the acting was really good in it, so, like, the characters made it more enjoyable too in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Who was his name? Paul? He was
Yeah,
cool.
TJ Miller, which while I was doing research for this episode, a lot of people were like, "This was made 3 years ago." Like, it aired in 2020, but it was
Yeah.
made 3 years earlier, and it's
Okay.
like 80 million, but it was a ridiculous budget. It was
Oh,
disgusting.
that's insane, yeah.
But people were like, this was before people stopped working with TJ Miller because he's like too much. Like he's apparently a big jerk. And
Oh,
even Mucinex
no!
canceled him. Like I was like, oh no, wow. Because he was very charming. I thought he was very funny. And then I think
He's a
Kristen
lot
Stewart
in
did
real
an
life, I
amazing
guess.
job.
Yeah.
I think she like added to a script that didn't really have a lot of character
That's fair.
in it,
Yeah.
because they were just like pods to get to the next thing, and she
Uh-huh.
was like, "Now we're gonna feel things."
Yeah, which is, like, refreshing for her, right?
Yeah.
Because the whole Twilight time is just, like, emote.
Yeah. No, she did really
Uh,
well in Panic Room,
that's true, that's true. I think
and
Twilight was an isolated incident.
no, because you listeners, if you're a diehard listener, you've listened to 198 episodes, maybe 197 because you skipped the first one like we asked you to. Um, you'll remember when we covered Equals with her in it, and
Oh,
I went
yeah.
on an
You're
incredible
right.
tangent about how awful that film was.
Yeah.
It's
I
so bad.
vaguely remember that, yeah. Well, she did
It
good
was
in
so
this,
bad.
so there we
Yes.
go. Win.
So yeah, I guess
You
it's
win
like
some, you lose some
Adventureland, I
in
think she was
life.
in, that was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I would say this is an enjoyable one. Also, she can totally get it in this film. Like, she
Yeah,
was
that's
out
fair.
here. Like, in the first part, she was walking around in her sports bra, and I was like, "She's really hot."
Yeah. It was a very impractical sports bra, it didn't cover any of the
I don't know.
sides.
Yeah. I don't
I
know, it
don't know.
felt like it was very industrial,
That's fair.
and she wasn't
I was
expecting to run through base.
yeah, I was
That's
just
falling
like,
apart.
why are the straps look like they're leather? Like, what's happening here? But also, I guess it was cool. I don't know.
You know, it's like Gravity where, you know, uh, I forget who that actress is because I get her mixed up. I think it's Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, it was. It was Sandra Bullock.
Um,
Yeah.
Spends a lot of it in, like, her underwear when she's not in the suit.
Yeah. Well, you
Everyone
can't have
does
a
that, and then
space movie or an underwater movie without someone being half naked the entire
yeah,
time for no
true.
reason.
Ripley is also that, she's in her underwear.
Yeah.
So
I think
but
it's a
that makes
trope of the
sense because
genre.
it's not just a trope, it's, like, it's practical because when you're in your suit, you're not wearing clothes
Yeah, I
in your
guess so.
suit.
You
The
could
Expanse
though,
does that too,
probs.
like, they're naked under there. Anyway, Kat, why don't you alright, so if you usually we would have hopped into the films section, but because this is like a special and we're trying to um just kind of spend some time with our fears,
Yeah.
not so much just like uh stick to our usual guns. Like I want this to be fun too. And for you all to get to know us. Kat,
Yeah.
before we get into like the real reasons why the ocean and underwater is scary, can you
Yeah.
tell us a bit about your aquatic horror?
Of like why I'm scared of it?
Yeah.
Sure. So I think it largely stems from my need to know what everything is, where everything is, and how everything is
Yeah.
as a person, which I mean, arguably is just autism. But like, it is very much like we don't know what's down there. It is a very open space that is unknown. We don't know who's in there, why they're in there, what's happening. There's so much just like scientifically we don't know. From a germs standpoint, it's filled with bacteria.
Some
Um,
of it skin eating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like, why even risk it? It's like that seems like a very you know it's in there, so you're like, I'm not gonna do that because best case, I don't get skin eating bacteria on me. But worst case I do. So it's like I would just rather not
Yeah.
put myself in that situation. Um, but yeah, it largely is because like there's just so much uncertainty and I don't like to exist in spaces that have uncertainty. And also like every time I've gone into the ocean when I was young, I have very stubby arms. So like I was just not good at swimming.
Oh.
Um and almost drowned in many instances that like that for anybody else probably would have been fine. But I was like, I can't float. Um, so yeah,
It's
I
so
almost
sad.
died many times as well from it. And also waves were rude because they would look small and then suddenly they'd be gigantic and I would be underwater skidding against the bottom of the ocean that was covered in shells and which is salt water. So you have open wounds, ocean, flesh eating bacteria. That never happened, but like could have arguably with the logic that if you have open wounds in open water, you are going to potentially interact with flesh-eating bacteria. I was also almost stung by a jellyfish. Um, I just don't like that you can't see what your feet are doing.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing for you don't something can touch you and you don't know what it is. There's just something so horrifying about that to me. And I think all of the sea creatures, they look like aliens. So
True.
it's like, I feel like if I don't know. I feel like I would also be scared of aliens probably, but it's just something so horrifying about not knowing what your surroundings entail.
Yeah.
And that makes me want to cry every time I think about it. And it's
Yeah.
like I fear it and respect it. I want it to have great things. I want it to not rise. I want it to stay where it is and just
And
live its
healthy,
happiest time.
have bright,
Yeah.
colorful coral, and like
Yeah,
all the
I want the
creatures
trash to be taken
exist
out. If anything, like humans should just get everything bad that we've done to it out of there so that it'll stop creating monsters.
and awakening them, which is exactly what
Yeah.
this film was all about. Um,
Yeah, I
as
mean, that's what it is. That's what it is, though. We are
yeah.
creating the problem by raising the temperature because heat activates all these horrible creatures and like the bacteria increases with heat. The bad things from the bottom come up with heat. Like there's so many things that the temperature and like us influencing the planet impacts the ocean in so many ways that are terrifying. And
Mhm.
as sea levels rising, I all those things that are in there, I want them to stay in there far away from me. And if the
Yeah.
sea levels rise, they're closer to me, and that just doesn't
That's not gonna work.
sit right. Like, if we end up having to be aquatic creatures, like, if we end up having to live in boats, I will just die. I don't wanna be there. I
You
don't wanna be
can't
there for
sir,
that.
I should have made you watch Waterworld.
I don't wanna be in regular boats. Like, I don't want to be in a situation where I can't leave where I am.
Yeah.
And boats mean that. You can't I'm never going on a cruise because what if the Titanic happens and then you're in the ocean with the things you don't wanna be in there with and also probably dead. And it's just like, so no. So much no. I don't wanna live in boats. We need to save the planet for that also.
I did consider having us watch Poseidon
Yeah, I've heard
as
that's
the film.
terrifying too. I mean, we still can and then
Terrifying.
talk about it again. I don't know. What do we wanna do?
I
Wow.
mean, yeah,
Just
maybe one day in the
experience
future.
life.
It it scares me, and
Yeah.
Poseidon is so scary. It's definitely like don't go on a cruise ship. But also Ghost Ship, that's a good one. And has one
Just
of the
don't.
really cool, like it has like a Final Destination death in the beginning that was really cool. And then the
Yeah.
ending was like, what? Oh my God. That's something that stuck with me forever. As
Yeah.
someone who grew up in Florida, I love the ocean and
No.
spent much of my youth in the ocean. And like when we go to the beach, I would just go in there and I'd be in there for hours
Yeah.
until like I was forced to leave. I've also like, caught in undercurrents. I have gone swimming when there are stingrays in the water, when it was like stingray season. I've gone in when it was like jellyfish season, and there's just like every wave you see is just full of stingrays or jellyfish.
Good.
I have swum with manatees in the clear waters.
You swim
All
with crocodiles too and
so I'm
snakes
with
and crap?
crocodiles and snakes and all kinds of fish. Um, and I think like in my youth, it's just from like ignorance of mortality that it didn't really affect me as much, where it's just like, it's cool to be in the water. I'm not thinking about the infinite nothing and like that is filled with things I don't understand, or like you could pick up like a little octopus and it murders you. Like it can disable like all your nervous systems and your heart just stops beating like
Yeah,
in
we're
a
gonna talk about
second.
that.
Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like super applicable for this film because we both freaked out by one of the characters just straight up touching without a glove a creature.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't know, like first of all, we're in the ocean. Like there are so many things in the ocean that are poisonous and you don't know, and you're just touching it.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, this is so unknown that we're thinking about what we should name it and take
Yeah.
credit of that, and we're gonna touch it with our bare hands. No.
Yeah.
But I will say this film kind of fits both of our horrors because usually I say that space is very horrific for me.
Yeah.
But this base and this whole experience
It's
that the
basically
people in
space.
underwater are essentially space. It's the same problems that I have with space in that you're
Yeah.
stuck and you're not supposed to live there. And
Yeah.
anything like once one thing goes wrong, that's
Everything goes
it.
wrong.
That's it
Yeah.
for you, like, you're not supposed to be here, and
It's
that
not
the
made for survival.
claustrophobia yeah, I was just like, "Okay, nah." So, like, that I get, like, you could swim 47 meters down, I was like, "Whatever, sharks." But this? It's like, "No, the environment wants to kill us just by existing." It's like, well, there's pressure here that will implode us, like, that's it.
Yeah.
Point.
There's
Period.
also just stuff down there that, like, actively like, the ocean is violent. Like, there's just so much murder all the time, like, of creatures on creatures or, like, parasites on creatures or plants on creatures. Like, I'm sure the regular planet, like, the up parts that aren't water have that too, but, like, the ocean is just, like, constant murder all the time, and it's just like even the things that live down there don't get to survive very long. Like their
Yeah.
lifespans are literally like throw sperm into the water and then die.
Yeah. And
Um,
hope that it just
yeah,
catches the right, like, water
yeah, like
rift
literally,
and
like
lands on some eggs over there.
hopefully, yeah.
Maybe I will
It's
get to live
literal
on.
just constant chaos. That's why it's like at the end of Blue My Mind, it's like, why would you want to go in there? It's
Yeah.
horrible. It just doesn't.
Or, like, octopi, like the mama octopus where she, like to protect her baby, will, like, eat her own arms to sustain herself because she can't leave them alone.
Yeah,
Like, that's how metal it is down there. So
it's really
freaking
metal.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, he said so that's why the ocean is very terrifying, and Kat's gonna go really into some
I'm
of the
gonna show
creatures that
you
you should be
so
afraid
many
of them,
things.
and hopefully will, uh, make you respect the ocean,
Yeah.
care about it,
Take
maybe check
care of it
out
so they don't come up here. We don't want them up here. Let them
Yeah.
stay down there.
Yes. Maybe check out our ways to help section so we can help stop some of these horrible things that are happening to our ocean and keep all them people in there and maybe not awaken archaic beasts that
Because
are interdimensional beings that can destroy all of humanity.
yeah,
And we just don't do that because they're
yeah,
slumbering in the ocean. But why don't we get into underwater?
do it.
All right, let's talk about underwater. So, fun enough, although like not fun at all, was that someone today was like, "Oh, this took place in 2020. That was 2 years ago," and I was like, "Shut up,
Shut your
shut
mouth.
up."
No, it
No, it
wasn't.
didn't, and I was like, it's 2022. It doesn't even seem real. So, Underwater is from 2020, which is 2 whole years ago from the time that we're recording this, and I think that's insane.
It is
Uh,
insane.
but Underwater is about a crew of oceanic researchers working for a deep sea drilling company try to get to safety after a mysterious earthquake devastates their deep water research and drilling facility located at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. It's directed by William Eubank, who also did The Signal, which is a film was like one of the first films I ever saw as like a film student where I got like a pass to see a
Okay.
film before it like premiered. And I
Fancy.
went to this really tiny theater. I brought my sister, and she's still mad at me because it was such a trippy film. And she
That's
like was
funny.
very young, and she was like, "Why did you make me watch this thing?" Um, so it like sticks with me as that. So thank you, Mr. Eubank, for making that film, and I
Yeah.
could have that experience. But Underwater takes place very that under the ocean.
It's under there, yeah.
Deep in the Mariana Trench, the deepest trench on Earth, is an underwater drilling site called Kepler 822 and a bunch of other ones. And we are first introduced to Nora, who's played by Kristen Stewart, on the seemingly empty base. Uh, she works for a company known as Industries, which is just like one letter away from Titan Industries. And I feel like that would have been really cool, but also
Yeah.
on the nose. But she works for TN Industries and she's a mechanic. Just, and you would think, like, if you're employed in an underwater facility, you have, like, a more like, not that mechanics aren't important, but you think of, like, like, engineer or something, right? And she's just,
Yeah.
like, a mechanic, like, you're like,
I
"Oh,
mean,
right."
clearly they needed one down there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's just, like, sometimes you forget that, like, "Oh, yeah, we need, like, like, all the jobs." Like,
Yeah.
in space, there's probably, like there
Well,
would
yeah,
be a
because you're
mechanic.
super far away from anyone else. So you like, yeah, you
Yeah.
need people who know how to do plumbing, you need people who know how to do like all the
You
infrastructural
need a
things.
cook, like, you need everything.
Yeah.
So, she's mechanic, and through voiceover, we get introduced to the grungy and sad world that she lives in. She says, "Under the water, you lose track of time. You don't know what day and night is," which is super true. Like, you're just in there, and it becomes this constant. And as 2020 taught us, when you're inside all day, every
Yeah.
day, for years, you do honestly forget what time is. It doesn't exist anymore. So we can
Yeah.
relate way more to her experience now than I'm sure that the creators expected.
Yeah.
Um, and giving us incredible alien vibes, Kepler 82 and the other places she and other workers traverse are incredibly claustrophobic and industrial. So much. And Nora rambles on about her uncaring world, illuminating her depressing character when we hear some strange, turning, creaking sounds that you really do not want to hear when you're underwater.
Yeah.
Like, there shouldn't be like, oh, the base has to settle. Like, no, it should have already settled. It should be done settling. Everything needs to
Yeah.
work the way that it's supposed to work. And then well, first of all, she sees a spider and she's like, "What are you doing in here?" Which is a good question. But also, she feels a few drops before it becomes very clear that something is wrong because the water is supposed to be outside of
Yeah.
this, and now there's little bits inside that we didn't plan for. And then
Yeah.
the base erupts into a watery grave while Nora frantically runs through the halls, yelling for everyone to wake up and attempts to seal off areas that have been flooded. And at this point, we see many workers rushing to where she is, but there's no time. Like, if she does not close this door, everybody
Yeah.
did. And so she's getting yelled at by another character to just seal it up. And she
Yeah.
waits till honestly the very last minute. Like, she really tried.
Yeah.
And has to seal this place. And so ultimately it results in the deaths of those workers.
Yeah.
Um, who just like happen to be sleeping. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Uh, and along her journey to the escape pods, she runs into other workers who are trying to survive. So we have Rodrigo, who's the first person she meets, and he's a soft spoken man who works hard to get to know Nora and happens to already know a bit about her. But he's just like someone who you like kind of forget because he's just like there. Um, but so nice. And he even like goes as far as like trying to comfort her as she struggles with the unintentional murder that just occurred.
Yeah.
And throughout this whole experience, he's just like, yeah, like, it's rough out there, but you had to do what you had to do.
Yeah.
There's Paul, who's played by TJ Miller, and he's our strange Alice in Wonderland obsessed underwater weirdo who serves as comic relief.
Yeah.
There's Captain Lucian, who attempts to keep things under control and make a man out of the crew. Emily, who's a glorified intern, I mean, research assistant, who really didn't want to be here in the first place, and surprisingly is a voice of reason.
Yeah.
She's the only one who's just like, not the only one, everyone's like, "Yeah, we're messed up. We just have to now deal with that," but she's like, "This is messed up." Like,
Yeah.
we should all just give up. She like, I remember at one point, Kat, you were like, "They want to live so much harder than anyone does." Like, they fight
Yeah.
so hard to keep going, and there's like, "For why?" And she the whole time, I'm always like, "No, we just give up. We just stop doing whatever
That
this
would have been
is."
me, like 100%. I'd be like, it's what it is. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I
Yo.
wouldn't I shouldn't have come down here and I knew that.
No, who knew this was gonna happen? Me, I
Yeah.
did, and now look at it
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
And then lastly, there's Smith, who is also there. Um, that's it. That's all I have to say about Smith. What a boring character. And this ragtag group navigates the watery grave and decide the best way to survive is to walk a mile underwater to a different facility with presumably working escape pods because apparently this is the Titanic.
Yeah.
And there's like there were some, but they're like broken or whatever. But it's just like there should like There should be pods
So
that
many
aren't just
more,
one
yeah.
person. Like, you know how much space that takes up that every escape pod can only fill up one person? And there has to be like thousands of people who work in this base. How does it work if there's not thousands of people? Like, okay. But
Yeah.
however, since this is a horror movie and apparently the horrors of being underwater in a base that is taking on water isn't enough to scare people, there are also mysterious beings stalking and picking off our crew one by one, like a slasher
Yeah.
or creature feature, I guess.
Yeah.
So, um, we talk about before the creatures, the underwater horror of it, because that was what was really interesting to me. I thought, like, when the creatures got introduced, I was like, "Oh, cool, we got extra." But
Yeah.
I was, like, already pretty terrified because, again, claustrophobia, you ain't catching me down there.
Yeah.
And just, like, the fact that the environment wants to kill you was
Yeah.
scary enough for me already. So, um, I really enjoy this film despite its bad reviews, and I do understand the disappointment because there is kind of an empty plot. It's just like a walk film, but so is Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings.
That's
um,
true.
and there are one-dimensional characters. Like, there's not really any growth to say. Though I
That's
do think
true.
Kristen Stewart did a good job. But there was something charming and honest about this setting that captured my interest immediately because I feel like it wasn't really about them. There,
Yeah, it's
it
more
was
the
about
situation than the characters, yeah.
yeah, it's everything else. It's like what we get to see as they're traveling through this place and what you get to infer about how they got here, that to me was scary and interesting, not them. Like, I don't even care. This was like
Yeah, I
an
would agree with that. Maybe
environmental
that's why
horror
we
film.
liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, I am terrified of closed claustrophobic spaces. Like I said, space itself is terrifying to me because we're not meant to exist up there. But neither are we meant to exist in the ocean. And the amount of care that goes into the construction of these bases, the suits, and all of that is more fascinating and proof that we shouldn't be there. Like how
Yeah.
much like work we have to put in just to exist and survive down there is like that's too much. Like
Yeah.
the earth is trying to say, "Do not come down here." And we're like, "Okay, but what if we just do all this now?" And they're like, "Why?" And so as soon as we're introduced to that suffocating empty facility and Nora just like brushing her teeth and waxing poetic, I was in. I was like, this is great. And watching crew people not only die from the monsters in the film, but also becoming victims to the environment they were disrespecting by being there was also terrifying.
Yeah.
So let me get into spoilers. So definitely check it out if you want to. But like I said, not a lot of people loved it. I think like it's an enjoyable film if you're not expecting like big things from it. You just want a fun creature feature film and just like go in just to have fun with it. And like
Yeah.
Kat still got a lot out of it, even though I live tweeted the entire thing to her. So like she knew who
Yeah.
the big bad was and was like, it's fine.
Yeah, I feel like I was watching it like I was watching Alien. I was just like, it's very fun. I don't care. I care about some of the characters, but I don't really care about their backstories. Essentially, like they're in this situation, and that's scary. Like you were saying, like I feel like that's what really made it more fun than I think if we went in with like media analysis classes on. Like if we watch this for not just I'm scared of
Isolation,
the
underwater,
ocean.
whatever.
Yeah, I don't maybe isolation, but like, yeah, I feel like if we were watching it with a different intent, we might not have liked it as much, but because of what we went into, not necessarily expecting it to be making some sort of crazy big statement, it was fun.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
totally allowed sometimes. And just like
Yeah.
with Alien, like it has been around for forever. Everyone knows what the answer is.
Yeah.
Like we know what the creature is. You still have fun. Like you still
Yeah.
watch that and you're like, wow, this is a fun run around time.
Yeah, like what a
So
wonderful, hilarious everyone dies.
ridiculous film. Yeah. So um we're getting to spoiler town. I'm going to tell you how people die. I'm going to tell you what the monsters are. I'm going to tell you all kinds of things. But
Yeah.
it hopefully will make you appreciate this film in the same way that I appreciated it, and maybe elevate like your expectations, but also like keep them in line. So underwater actually almost immediately falls into the like almost failed because it fell into the terrible, exhausted, overused trope of killing off its only black character and doing that first, which is
Yeah.
a big no-no, especially it's 2020. What are
Yeah.
you doing? I will say that no named characters die all around us, and in like you can it's safe to infer that like thousands of them do. But Rodrigo is the first character to die that we actually cared about.
Yeah.
And how he dies was enough to distract me from that faux pas. And also, Mahmoudou Athi, who plays him, his performance really had me in my feels. Like I really enjoyed him. I thought he was like such a soft, kind man.
Yeah.
And we see like his nervous fear overshadowed by Emily's because she's so much louder than him and she's like very vocal, like we shouldn't be here. And he's just in the background, like, agree, like
Yeah.
confirmed. But he's just trying to make it. And he very quickly becomes like second fiddle to every other character in there. And which is why I think they kill him off so easily. But when I was watching it, I was like, couldn't he have been Smith? Like,
Yeah.
he didn't have to be Rodrigo. Like, I would have enjoyed seeing, like, Athi make it to the end, even if he was such a, like, nothing character like Smith was, um, and have him live.
Yeah.
Then, like, he's worth, like, protecting more than Smith is, but whatever. Um, while trying to flee the deteriorating base, the crew dons these hard suits and submerge themselves in water. And once they reach their location, they work to open the doors and pressurize the space that they're in. However, Rodrigo's helmet was faulty and begins to crack. Before they like put the suits on, Emily again is like distracting us and freaking out because she's like, I don't even have a suit, which is I was like, no one should be on this base who doesn't have a suit. First of all, I
Yeah.
was like, again, are we in the Titanic?
Yeah.
Uh, so she's like screaming. So, and it's to the point where like people are trying to calm her down that you don't even hear that Nora's like, some of these are faulty. Like she says
Yeah.
it straight out, like some ain't right. And he takes one, and I think he knew. Like
Yeah.
he's like an unspoken hero in this, and it's kind of ridiculous that he doesn't get enough like respect for it. But
Yeah.
um his helmet begins to crack, and it's like the first really terrifying thing that happens, like, because 'cause you're seeing it, and then all of a sudden, Emily and Nora are, like, screaming, like, "Do not depressurize it," or whatever, like, "Do not open the door, don't do it," and as they're doing that, the cabin gets pressurized, and Rodrigo just implodes in his suit, and it's just
Yeah.
black, and then they're screaming, and you're just
Yeah.
like, "What?" Because it happens so fast, and you're just like,
Yeah.
as soon as that crack happened, you were like, "No, no, 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 no," and then it did, and I was like, "Oh, no."
Yeah.
That's why you weren't supposed to be down there. Why are you down here? But I did find some interesting factual errors about their suits and the deaths that occur on this helpful website called Movie Mistakes, and they explain, the way the implosions were simulated isn't exactly accurate. At that depth, going from a pressurized suit immediately to unpressurized would completely crush you to almost non existence. Instead, in the cases of Rodrigo and the captain, they seem to explode with such a force and outward exertion of energy that it blows everything and everyone back. The worst being Rodrigo, he implodes, as the movie says, but a regular size, albeit torn off human hand hits Nora on her helmet later, and I think there was a normal size eyeball that floated by. Again, these parts would be reduced or flattened to an undefinable size. So it's like they don't keep things like what's the word I'm looking for? Um they don't hold a lot of the rules throughout. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like sometimes this is how science works and sometimes this is how science works.
Yeah.
Because I think there's like a part where like just like the suit integrity doesn't make sense in some of those
Yeah.
spots. They also mentioned that the hard suits the drivers wear have soft, relatively normal gloves and soft joints, more akin to a football uniform with armor over spandex. They are at the bottom of the Mariana Trench at 36,000 feet below sea level. The pressure is over 7,000 psi, whatever that science equals. Without a hard suit, they would instantly be crushed. So it doesn't make any sense that they have these like flimsy gloves. I was like, that again, this is so terrifying. Why are we here where just like our suit not being it kills us?
Yeah.
And also there is an issue that Kat and I had with the ending, which was addressed in one of the factual mistake reports. And it says the Kepler's energy core is a huge nuclear reactor. It can easily obliterate the whole station, so its accessibility should be protected by all kinds of fail-safe systems and high-level security protocols. Yet Nora, a simple mechanic, can fire it up and overcharge it without any password, keycard, identification method, or such, only by pressing a few buttons and then space. Not even enter. There's not even a confirmation process before switching the reactor to terminal overload, and it's like a few seconds. Like it was like
Yeah, like, you could do that by mistake so easily.
yes, so many and, like, throughout the whole film, like, like, they try to get into, like, a door, and it's like, "Oh, this thing doesn't work," and she's just like, "Oh, I opened it up, and I connected 2 wires, and now everything works." And it's
Yeah,
like, "That's not that's not how anything works."
yeah,
Um, I think the real horror, of this, though, like, the environment is super interesting, uh, as we find a lot in our exploration of film, happens to be people, right?
yeah,
And these are things that like uh influence my appreciation of the film because I enjoyed these like small background details that you have to like fill in as you're going. So
yeah,
there's like these announcements throughout the base. There's flyers on the wall, and even the company's goal were horrifying and haunting itself.
yeah,
Um, the vibe, like I said before, reminded me heavily of the aquatic horror games BioShock and Soma, specifically with BioShock because they feature an underwater civilization that relied heavily on propaganda and was reminiscent of 1984. And
yeah,
in Underwater, we learn about TN Industries through the signage in the facilities and the announcements over the intercoms, reminding the workers that they're not just part of the team, but a part of the family, and
yeah,
to file complaints with their supervisors. And we hear like hear the file complaint with your supervisor. I was like texting Kat about them, and it's like at the time when like everything is exploding, it's just like I'd like to report that I don't want to be here anymore. Like I want to
yeah,
report that like this is a bad idea for everyone to be
yeah,
here. And seeking refuge, Nora finds herself on another base that had been previously abandoned, and that site was full of posters and other paperwork encouraging hard work and obedience. And it felt so eerie to imagine that the life they lived before the earthquake and how horrifying it was to work for this company. It
yeah,
was very clearly like when I was watching it, I was like, this is anti capitalist AF. I was like,
yeah,
this is like, people are totally neglecting like all this stuff that's happening that's telling you like the villain is TN Industries. It's not the ocean,
yeah,
actually. And in the end credits, we learn more about the film's background and about TN Industries specifically. We learn that the year is 2050, which is not far away. And despite strange sightings at drilling sites, the industry is persevering and drilling for natural resources despite that. The company refuses to shut down even after the horrific acts that occur in this film, and they silence the two survivors.
yeah,
And it's not too far off from our current state of the world. And despite the existence of monsters, this film is completely believable. Like it could,
also,
besides
those
like the
monsters probably exist, but yes, continue.
also, yes, in some form, right?
Yeah,
And we've covered this in episodes previously, like The Bay, where we explore that those in charge ignore horrible events and they cover up the murders of thousands, while the money hungry industries continue to siphon the resources from our planet without any respect of understanding for the effects or the limitations of those. That
yeah,
we're running out of them. They're not an answer to our problems, and they're just going to cause more drama.
yeah,
And Emily, again, our voice of reason, says in a moment of awe and terror, we're not even supposed to be down here. We drilled to the bottom of the ocean and we don't know what came out. And it's essentially she's like, we just take and take and take. Like I couldn't find the exact quote, which is stupid because it's like the
a pretty
thesis for
big
the whole
important,
film. And I
yeah,
was like, why is it nowhere? But she just says, like, we came down here and we just take and take and take, and then we awaken something.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, we did.
Also,
And
it's
what
like, maybe
they
we shouldn't, frack, we shouldn't do fossil fuels
yes,
anymore, we should just
we
do
shouldn't
different
drill, no offshore
fuels.
drilling.
Yes.
um, but as mentioned, there are monsters afoot, and the film becomes less aquatic horror and more creature feature when we first catch glimpse of these strange Slender Man-like creatures outside. And as the crew ventures forward to safety, they encounter a dead body that appears to have had something emerge from inside of it. So they're like,
Yeah,
this wound seems like it was internal and came out. And so, in a truly alien fashion, we see that a small creature has been born inside this human, and in a move that would greatly anger Ripley, they bring it inside and then touch it with their bare hands.
yep,
We were like, "Why are you doing this?" Same thing with like
yeah,
protocol. protocol says you can't bring that in here.
Yeah, like,
um
leave it outside, there's no reason.
what, like, we don't have time for this.
We need to
We
get
need
out
to
of here, not
go.
investigate this weird
The
creature,
ocean
like
keeps killing us. So
yeah,
could we not?
yeah,
So these creatures turn out to be deep ones, which are Lovecraftian creations. Deep ones are fish-like creatures who reside underwater, obviously, and they're attracted to humans and try to mate with them to create half breeds of these like fish human people.
yeah,
And if you read certain Lovecraftian lore, like Innsmouth, you will see some of those fish people. And for the more majority of the film, we are afraid of those beings specifically. They're lurking beasts that are both incredibly quick and strong. They rip the wacky Paul right out of his hard suit, just
yeah,
like yoink. And he was just, I was like, oh no. And then they like tell you, like, they're like, how was that possible? Like, they had to explain how
yeah,
impossible that was because we don't know what suits are. And they spend most of the films in the shadows or throwing in or dragging the crew around. And at one point, the last remaining survivors, Nora, Emily, and Smith, encounter a den of them slumbering right in front of the very place that they need to be. Figures.
yeah,
And once they accidentally are awoken, you think that's the end of our girl Nora until something manages to frighten them and they like skitter off. We're not
yeah,
frightened, but like draws their attention. And you're like, what could be more interesting than a yummy snack like Nora? I mean that in
yeah,
both definitions
yeah,
of the words. And in the last moments of the film, we're introduced to the monster and king of creatures himself, Cthulhu. And he has risen. TN Industries having dug so far deep into this trench that they breached the interdimensional space he was napping in. And he awakens and is angered by the drill, and he seeks to wreak havoc, and his minions, the deep ones, race to finish off the last remaining humans as they escape in their pods. So, in a last attempt to save those two and maybe the world, because she doesn't know what Cthulhu is, Nora initiates a ridiculously easy self-destruct sequence for the nuclear reactor that no one mechanic should be able to access or launch simply by pushing the space bar, but she does. And we watch as she goes out in a moment of glory, leaving Cthulhu and his friends to scramble away to safety. And
yeah,
it does not appear to show the death of Cthulhu as if you could just like blow him up or whatever. And instead hints at the potential for more chaos. Um, because he just like kind of scrambles. Like you see him
and
like
he's just
run.
like,
He's like,
"Oh,
oh
that's
fuck.
gross," and then he runs away.
Yeah. TN Industries covering up the events and proceeding to dig while Cthulhu lurks along the ocean floor leaves me to believe a sequel could exist. Or perhaps this opens the door for a film multiverse of Lovecraftian lore and creatures. Like, will Guillermo del Toro finally finish the Mountains of Madness film that I dream about? One can
Yeah,
only hope. It can open the doors for all the Lovecraftian lore made by other people and done in a really cool way.
yeah, and if anything, this is also like, okay, don't drill, don't use fossil fuels, but it's also like industry towns are bad.
Mhm.
Like, don't let Amazon own a town because it will
Yeah,
be bad
it's
for everyone
terrifying.
involved. Um,
Watch Sorry to Bother You or
yeah,
Severance.
yeah, no, like 100%. So it's like also just like a little nod to the fact that that would be a horrible idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah. I didn't realize it was Cthulhu. I just thought they were octopus or like squids,
He was
like
so much
giant squids.
Cthulhu.
I didn't, I was just like, the ocean probably has that down there.
I mean, yeah, Cthulhu probably living down there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I just like I wasn't thinking like interdimensional space time. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah,
that
yeah,
just
yeah.
lives down there. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I have never doubted for a second that that lives already down in the ocean, and that's why we shouldn't go.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah. So
Alright.
that was what for me. That's where I was at with that. Um,
Why'd you tell us
but
more
yeah,
about the ocean?
it's so scary, Gabe. You just don't even understand. So in my notes, I wrote ocean equal scary. And there's a reason for that because there's just stuff down there that's been here since before the dinosaurs lived through an entire, like, whatever that was hitting the planet, ice ages, whatever the world could throw at it. It's like, whatever, this is a Tuesday. They don't even have a concept of time. It's also filled with like monstrous things that are poisonous, can kill you, parasites, flesh eating times, murder all around. Everything's just murdering everything all the time. Um, Something that was really horrifying for me is that one, there are anemones that sting you.
Yeah.
Starfish are terrifying.
Yeah.
Great white sharks travel thousands of kilometers just to eat baby seals. And there's a
Mhm.
coral that pushes its guts outside of its body and dissolves other coral using digestive enzymes. And I just thought that was insane. So I learned all that from Netflix's dark, like it's like nature but dark times. I forget what it's
Mhm.
called, but I'll put it a link to it, I guess, like when we do. Um, but I got a bunch of pictures of scary things, so I'm going to show them to you. And I
And also
titled this.
explain them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, of course, of course. I call this list awful things that need to stay far away from me. The first is probably familiar to anybody who saw our other underwater time,
Mm.
because it's zombie worms. They
Oh,
look
right, too.
horrifying. So there's several worms that love to feast on carcasses on land. There's the squeamish maggots or whatever the heck they're called. But down in the ocean, there are zombie worms. They suck out the nutrients out of any bones in the sea using feathery plumes. Um,
Ew.
that is not even the scary bit. The words you see enjoying essentially a bone buffet are
Mm-mm.
actually all female zombie worms filled with 111 males living inside of them.
What?
Yeah. So that lovely image is just 111 worms
What?
inside of another worm, in
And
case
then
you
they
just.
devour we did talk about zombie worms in isolation underwater.
Yeah. So if you wanna hear about that a little bit. There's also the regular blue planet or whatever, it's in that.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
next are Bobbitt worms. Aren't those cute?
Yeah.
Um, they're
They look
sand
like little
strikers.
crabs or something, or like a
Yeah.
hermit crab.
No, because like, look how long they are, and look at
They're
its
also really,
face.
like, gold, like, they're pretty, they have these gold
They're
stripes
Gabe,
that also have, like,
Gabe.
rainbow things on it, but that's a worm, right? Like, it's still going all the way into the ground?
Okay, yeah,
So it's like a
so
centipede.
yes,
Oh,
it's
no.
a big centipede baby. Um, they are marine ambush predators with bone-hard grappling hooks that can reach up to a length of the equivalent of a human's arm. These worms bury themselves in sand or gravel and can grab and drag their prey 20 feet per second,
Oh my god.
slicing them in one go using their large, spring-like retractable jaw with scissor-like serrated plates.
That is
Although they
so
offer
extra.
I know. They offer no poison or actual harm to humans, although stepping on one can significantly cause painful wounds on your legs. If they do not harm you, simply looking at them will give you the creeps.
Yeah, and they will ruin your day,
Yeah, yeah,
essentially.
yeah, yeah. There's lots of worms on my list. I just want to say that. The next one looks like intestines. So it's
Oh,
mostly
yeah.
just like gross looking. It's not so much like it's
That is scary.
fine,
It does
I
look like
guess.
intestines were dropped on the ground.
Oh, I found it. Here you go.
Yeah. It just looks like a bunch of
Proboscis.
ooh.
Kerboskis worms. They grow at lengths of up to 2 meters and scavenge for grubs on the sea floor. These worms will eat pretty much anything they come across and have very few, if any, predators. So they're just really gross. They're not so scary. It's just like they upset me to
And
look at.
undefeatable.
Yeah, like nothing fights them.
They're
So
like, yeah.
the next one is it's also, like, crazy that I've memorized all of these, but
Yeah.
so the next one is a stonefish.
Oh, yeah, I've seen
Perfectly
those.
yeah, camouflaged. They look like a rock on the floor of a coral reef. The stonefish is the most venomous fish in the world. It has
What?
13 spines along its back that release the venom, which could kill humans within just a few hours. So they
I
just
thought
kinda,
the
like
little octopus was the most poisonous
I don't know,
or
it says this
venomous.
one.
Okay, I believe you. I'm just
It says
saying.
this one. It might say it more than once. I don't know. I pulled these from different sources. Uh, the next is the Sloan viper fish, which is also terrifying looking. It's less than a foot long, and it may seem relatively harmless, but its teeth are a force to be reckoned with. The fang-like chompers are more than half the size of the viper's head, allowing the fish to impale prey by swimming at the victim head first, mouth agape.
Okay, this fish
So
looks like a penis, first of
it
all.
does, yeah.
But
Penis
the
with
head
teeth.
of it looks like Penis with teeth. It looks like the fish in Finding Nemo when it's just like, uh,
I know what you're
"You're
talking
gonna be
about.
my best friend."
It's a whole other fish that also lives in the ocean and it has a little
Yeah,
light above its head, and
yeah.
it's
This
crazy
one doesn't have the
looking.
light, but it has the same face.
Yeah.
It's
The
ugly,
next one
like a
is a call
penis.
out to the bay.
Yeah.
Is a
Ooh,
giant isopod
I love isopods.
baby.
I can't with them.
Yeah, they're
I know
so
that they're
creepy.
not dangerous, but they're the worst.
Yeah, so these giant isopods live in the deep sea where they catch what prey they can, allowing including slow-moving sea cumbers, sponges, and nematodes, but mostly scavenge the dead carcasses of fish, squid, and whales. There's
Just so you
just
know,
so
I'm
much.
covering my eyes for that one.
Yeah, there's so much just like fish murder. Like they just
Yeah.
cannibalize each other. And I get like they're different species of fish, so it's not actually cannibalizing, but it's just like so much eating each other in murder
I
times.
mean, we eat everything. I don't
I don't
personally, but
either. Like
people
I
do, you know?
don't either because texture.
Okay.
But okay, so then we have Cece.
Oh, Cece.
Yeah, lionfish is known for its many spiky fin rays, which are also happen to be highly venomous. All the really pretty
Oh,
fish are pretty venomous. Found in the Caribbean
it's
and
so
East
pretty.
Atlantic oceans, the lionfish packs a powerful sting if disturbed. The sting might not be fatal for humans, but it certainly can be painful. So if you like think of that New Girl episode, it could have not been a jellyfish. It could have been a lionfish. They could have actually found that in the ocean because they are poisonous
Mhm.
and they just like didn't talk about that.
Yeah,
Um,
and it was very illegal for him to have it in
yeah,
utero.
I imagine because 'cause they're poisonous.
Yeah,
They're murder
you can't have them
babies.
as pets because they will kill you.
Yeah,
They're
um,
murderers.
so my least favorite is next, snakes, but they're water baby snakes. They're sea snakes. Found in the Indian Pacific Oceans, there are around 50 different species of sea snakes. The most poisonous species is the beach sea snake, whose venom is 8 times as toxic as a cobra's. Just
Oh,
1.5 milligrams of its venom could kill you in up to 8 humans. So not even just one human, 8 humans.
sure.
Luckily, they are not known to attack humans often, just don't provoke them.
Just sometimes. Who's
Yeah.
provoking them? Who's like,
I
"Nah,
feel
nah."
like there's a jerk out there that's like, "Imma mess with this snake and then regret it." So,
Yeah.
that sounds accurate to me. So, sea urchins are also in the water. They're just little spiky balls of poison. Um, they have sharp, poisonous spines, which are extremely painful as they pierce the skin. The puncture wounds have a tendency to become infected. But there is one picture here. The flower urchin is one of the more perilous sea creatures, as its extremely painful stings can lead to paralysis and even death. They're usually found on rocky or sandy seabeds of coral reefs in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, uh, but essentially are venomous. And you don't want to let its beauty fool you. Each of these flowers is actually a tentacle with a little jaw
Mm-mm.
that can inject toxic
Of
venoms
course.
into you and potentially kill you. Um, and it was named one of the most dangerous sea urchins in the 2014 Guinness Book of World Records, and is on a list of 30 reasons why the ocean is scarier than space. The next one is a coral. It's
Mm.
fire coral. It's very pretty.
It does look very
Um,
pretty. Nemo lives there.
no, that's an anemone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not the stinging one. It's
Look
just
at
like a
me.
regular guy.
This is where they left and they went to touch the butt. Anyway, go on. Do your facts.
Fire coral actually aren't corals apparently. So like why is that its
What?
name? They're members of the Hydrosa class, which is closely related to jellyfish. These creatures that ironically attached to coral can inflict a serious sting that causes burning or raised rash. So it's just like a bad time. The next one is a little octopus. It's actually very cute. So it's a shame that it's so deadly. So the blue ringed octopus is really cute and it's
Oh,
all
yes.
little. It's all little and cute,
It is
but
so cute.
it's so murderous. So it's found in the waters of Australia and Japan. The blue-ringed octopus is as dangerous as it is spectacular. When provoked, this tiny octopus will start flashing a bright neon blue. Whilst it may be a dazzling sight, one bite can kill a human. And it's yeah, it's gross in that way. The pufferfish has nothing to do with the blue-ringed octopus, but it's as venomous. His venom is 10,000 times more lethal than cyanide. So
Yikes.
that's fun.
I've seen, like, videos, like, TikToks and, like, just random videos where they'll show someone like, "Oh, look at this cute thing," and then it's just, like, it cuts to someone being like, "They did."
Yeah.
Like, or just, like,
I
white
also
people.
misread what it was. Is the pufferfish has nothing on the blue-ringed octopus, as its
Gotcha.
venom is 10,000 more times more lethal than cyanide, and there is no antidote that exists.
Yeah, you just
So,
it shuts down your system, your
yeah,
nervous
you get it,
system,
you
and your heart
die.
stops.
This is what happens. It's sad for you. Uh,
But you probably deserved it for touching that.
yeah. Because it warns you, it gives you big blue light, it says, "Don't touch me, I'm very pretty, leave me alone." And then
Same.
you're like, "I don't wanna touch it," and then you touch it and you're dead, so,
Wait, but look at me, look at my eyes.
yeah,
Big blue light. I'm beautiful, don't touch me.
yeah. I feel that as well, yeah. The next thing is a textile cone snail,
So
which is
cool.
also super pretty, but essentially, the cone snail, if you get too close to it basically injects venom through their radular teeth capable of paralyzing and killing a human. So that little thing at the front there,
Mhm.
this is radular teeth. It lives a little bite and you're dying.
It looks like a shell. It looks very pretty. If you're listening, just go to our YouTube and watch Cat's Facts section so you can see all the fish and the
Yeah.
creatures.
The next one is familiar. It's a blowfish slash pufferfish, and it possesses
Yeah.
venom that is 1,200 times more poisonous than cyanide. So slightly less than the blue-ringed octopus, but still pretty bad. Um, they're one of the most toxic animals in the world, but despite their deadliness, the inflated fish is considered a delicacy in Japan, where
Mhm.
trained chefs prepare it for exorbitant fees.
And they have to be really specific about taking out the poison part, because
Yeah,
it, like and it's like it's like an art almost, like, to get
yeah.
that thing out of there.
Yeah, you gotta be really talented.
Yeah.
Um, the next one is I love its name. It's the flamboyant cuttlefish, but you don't wanna cuddle
Same.
it. You don't wanna cuddle it.
I'm a flamboyant cuttlefish.
Yeah. It is the only toxic cuttlefish known to exist. The colorful creature has been compared to the blue-ringed octopus, as in its poisonous flesh could kill any predator that dares to feast on it. And like the blue-ringed octopus, marine biologists believe that this toxic tank dweller uses its vibrant colors to warn potential predators to stay away.
I disagree because I am also toxic and a flamboyant cuddler, so
You're not poison though, babe. Like you're not. You
I'm
don't. You're not
toxic,
made of
though.
poison. You're
Okay.
not the Britney Spears song or whoever made it originally. That Britney Spears sang it also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha. Picking it up.
This guy, Crown of Thorns starfish. So starfish are really scary. I watched it like in the darkness documentary. It like ate other shelled fish in like a really gruesome way, and they just are really gross. There's so many tiny little holes that make them up. But this
Oh, yeah,
guy
I
is a
can't look at them
spiky
usually.
guy. This is a spiky starfish. So generally around 13 inches in diameter, the crown of thorns starfish is larger and much more dangerous than its benign, literally washed up relatives on the seashore. The coral-loving creature is covered in poisonous spines that cause intense immediate pain lasting for up to 3 hours. The next one is called a stargazer, and it is very funny looking. It's a funny looking guy. Look at him. What are you gonna do?
Mood.
Yeah.
He looks very grumpy. He looks like a grumpy old man, like a
Yeah.
grumpy Republican.
Yeah, they just bury down in the sand and you don't see them, so you can't avoid them because they just blend in there. And if you accidentally step on one, you'll know if you've been stung by bleeding, pain, swelling, and slight electrocution. So,
Just a little electrocution for a
well,
treat.
yeah, electrocution for treat. My last one I got here, is this creepy little. Look at his teeth. Look at
Look at his
his.
teeth. He has teeth that have extra teeth. Like, each one of his teeth
Yeah,
is several teeth.
he has 300 rows of needle-like teeth. The shark snags soft-bodied squid and fish in the deep. How it attacks prey is unknown because it's in the deep, deep of the ocean. And just its teeth are so gross. It's scary. Look at its little needle, guys. It's gonna. It
It's
looks
also
like.
so rude that it attacks soft-bodied when it has teeth like this.
Yeah,
Like,
it could get
what it
hard-bodied
seems
stuff.
yeah, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's in there just murdering stuff. It's all scary and whatnot.
I'll also point out that, like, these are all things that we know exist
Yeah,
because 'cause they're where we can see, but
yeah.
there's just, like,
There's
so much
so much in the we don't know time.
There's so much
Um,
we don't
there's
know.
so much of just the scary the water is evil and wants to murder you times. Cthulhu is down there. Otherwise, where did
Yeah.
Cthulhu come from in our brains?
Well, that's what I think, like, I think it's funny because most Lovecraftian horror, so Lovecraft just was like, sea creatures are scary, snakes are scary, bugs are scary, and he just
Yeah.
like all his creatures
And
are
he's
like,
right.
let
That's
me,
the one thing he's right about.
yeah, and then like and bats or whatever.
Yeah.
Like all of his stuff is just like, what do people not want to see? Probably a lot of eyes and slimy creatures with too many appendages that are alien. And it's also funny because, like, I've been reading Dawn by Octavia Butler,
Yeah.
her Lilith Brood series, and the aliens in that, the Uloi, are like kind of. The way I've been envisioning them is kind of Cthulhuan. It's like
Yeah.
because they have like tentacles, but it's like their tentacles are their hair and their face, and it's really weird to explain.
Yeah.
But that's what they are. So I think it's like totally fair to think like if aliens exist, that they would look like our sea creatures because they also have to exist in harsh environments and are probably just as like conniving and deadly and beautiful also.
Yeah. In the one documentary I was watching, it was so scary. They like fast forwarded what it looked like, and all like the anemones and the little coral and stuff like moved really fast, and it looked like they were just like crawling
Yeah.
and like being
Ooh,
so scary. It was like its arms were moving, like, but like in a really creepy spider like way, and it was
yeah.
horrible. It was
But it takes them
horrible.
like forever to do that because they're
Yeah.
like really slow.
Yeah.
And it's like that joke in Nemo. Who needs friends like these when you have anemones?
Yeah. It's good. Good.
Live in an anemone.
Yeah.
Anemone. Great. That was fun. Kat, do you feel like you've convinced everyone to be afraid of the ocean appropriately?
I mean, I hope so. One day we'll talk about like all the ways in which if we don't stop the ocean from being mad, it will kill us. But now
Mhm.
you know it's down there, so you like don't want it to come up here. You want it to stay in the ocean. And if you want to also just be scared of water in general, watch our Bay episode because
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to see what happens when we are affecting it and how
yeah,
like what happens if it needs to evolve and fight back and it
yeah,
does decide that we are a snack for it.
yeah. It's like remember your flesh. We don't want you to have that now.
Sorry. You know your tongue that you're very attached to?
Yeah.
So am I. I'm now your tongue.
Yeah, I've replaced your tongue. That giant isopod is now inside your belly. Uh, with all those little
That's fun, it's so fun.
legs. Scary.
Yeah, yeah, and then also, like, on top of that, you have this film that tells you that, like, we just can't exist down there either, like, the environment itself, like, not even just, like, the creatures down there, but just the existence of the ocean is not fit for humans,
Yeah,
so we can't be doing that.
yeah.
So hopefully you're enjoying. Next week we're going to be talking about my fear, and then we're at 200 episodes. So
I
make sure you're
know.
liked and subscribed. Let us know what your favorite Ghouls episode is, just because we would love to hear. And we are thinking about like revisiting certain topics and maybe doing it in a different way.
Yeah,
We are starting a coffee account so that you can support us in a lot of our future endeavors. Like, we're going to try making some more films. We're going to try uh, just to be able to support ourselves. We're going to try
yeah. If you like our already just regular
intentional.
content, you could give money to it because that's what it's gonna do. We just
Yeah,
pay us
it helps us
for
to
what
do this.
already do. You know.
Yeah, help us keep do this.
Yeah,
And then like shout out to some of our new followers on YouTube and just elsewhere. We have Joseph Wilson. Hey, we are listening. You've been
yeah,
chatting
yeah.
to us this whole
So
time. We
dope.
really appreciate you saying that. And there's been a few people who just like started subscribing, and we really appreciate you. We have Mr. Sugar Happy 01, Daunting Phoenix, like I said, Joseph Wilson, Sydney Toll. Yeah,
Yeah,
whoa, there's like a
welcome.
lot. It's pretty cool. I don't know, what you all are expecting. Mariah
Hopefully you
Denson.
like it. I don't know.
Yeah. Ryan Hathaway, Ferrex. Wow, there's like so many. Also, like if you have been watching us on TikTok and you found your way to our channel, welcome.
Yeah.
Hopefully that works. Let us know. Be sure to check out our Twitch streams. They're not quite regular yet, but eventually they will be, and you can watch me, Gabe, um, try to play Elden Ring. It's very scary. I'm not very good, and most of it is just me running away and screaming, but it could
Yeah.
be fun for other people.
Yeah. And one day I'll do it again. We'll figure it out, you know.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a regular schedule.
I tried to play Dying Light, but it's really hard to do that with headphones in just because the zombies are always yelling. They're always just
Yeah,
screaming. And it's like to just have that here instead of everywhere was a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
I tried.
Well, if we come up with a regular, like if you want to see that, let us know. Like leave us a comment. If you want to see regular Twitch content, support us if you want to see something like that too. If you have your own thoughts about underwater, if you're like, no, Gabe, you're wrong. The movie is
It
not
was
good.
so bad.
And I
No.
totally get it. I totally get what
Yeah.
you're saying. But also you're wrong because it's a great film and I love it. And next week we're going to talk about a film that is one of my favorites now.
It was
So
so scary.
like that one was legitimately scary for
Yeah.
both of us in ways that like weren't just like put yourself in the shoes. It was just like, wow,
Everything in my
now I'm
house is a
haunted. I
ghost
couldn't sleep.
now.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about 200, and then we're on to a new series. So, um, yeah, don't get married.
Delete your kids, or your
Cool.
kids will have to be in the ocean forever.
Waterworld.
Yeah.
And then your daughter has the map to lands tattooed on her back, I think is the plot. Someone asked Roland. That's his favorite movie.
I
Anyway.
don't know. Don't do it then. Don't have the kids, the babies, the marriage, the times. Because ocean's scary. You don't really
Okay, yeah,
know.
because we're ruining the ocean.
Ruining the
Cthulhu's
world.
Cthulhu's gonna end it all anyway, so why even have
Cthulhu
children?
is sad octopus. He's sad.
He said.
He says, "Stop hurting me so that I don't have to
Oh
come up to land and murder you all."
no, he wants to do that. He's excited. All right, bye everyone.